Welcome to True Health Tuesday, and the truth will set you free. Okay, I've got a guest speaker tonight. This is super, super cool. It's a different way to view your emotional status, and I love the way this guy talks. He's got a very, very cool accent. So if you like guys with accent, you're going to dig him. And he's going to go through, and this is going to be the non-censored portion, where he's going to teach you self-empowerment for a unique view of psychotherapy. I think you're going to like the way he words it out. And the second part, since he is from Israel, I mean, fresh off the boat, what, a month,
Yes.
3 weeks? Okay, yeah. So we're going to go over on certain things that are censorable that we can't talk about on what's going on in that part of the world. So but that's going to be on the private part. So here he is, Ilan.
The one and only.
Okay, good. Here you go, brother. Okay, good.
Thank
Here
you
you
very
go.
much.
Here's the wand of power, and I'll see you in a bit.
Yes. Okay. So in this presentation, I'm gonna explain how the emotional system works in a precise and a simple way. So first I'll begin about how I found out about Dr. B. It was around 5 years ago. I had a shoulder surgery and I was looking to how to heal faster. And then I noticed all kinds of different perspectives. And then I noticed Dr. B perspective, where basically what he taught me to look at the body as a whole unit that is made of different parts. Whereas my medical doctor, he looked only at my shoulder, said, you have a syndrome or whatever here, that's a problem, have a surgery for it. The more I got to know Dr. Z's perspective, I understood that if I would have found it sooner, I wouldn't have to go through the suffering and through the surgery. As you see in the presentation, there is Dr. B on the left, and there is
Fine. That's one. I'm not really here. I'm in the background.
Okay. So as you can see, Dr. B on the left, Dr. C or Richard C. Schwartz on the right. The reason why I'm putting them together is because when I'm looking at Dr. B's perspective on the physical system, it's exactly the same thing that I see with Richard when it comes to the emotional system. Both of them look at the systems from parts perspective. That means different parts of the system affect each other. Another point is their perspective is not pathologizing. So for example, when you see medical doctors say you have this syndrome, you have this disease, they're not looking at the root cause. They're looking at what we call at the adaptations. Another point is that from IFS perspective, the internal family systems, and from Dr. B perspective, we are looking at adaptations that are caused due to stressors or traumas. Another point is the human body is here and it's meant to not only live, but to thrive. So when given the right conditions, this is what our body can do. And another big point, simple and common sense. So let's talk about humans. Humans, we are social tribal species. That means we are fully dependent on our caregivers. So as babies, if, for example, my mommy or my tribe does not approve of me, they're going to abandon me and I'm going to die. So because we are born intelligent, our brain has developed certain coping mechanisms or strategies in order to fit in our society. Another point is, until we reach approximately age 8, our cognitive brain is not fully developed. That means we are looking and feeling the world in comparison to conceptualizing and rationalizing it. That means we're acting like a sponge. What is a trauma in one sentence? Emotional trauma is a distress that was not resolved. When people think about trauma, usually they think about physical abuse, rape, murder, wars, and so on. At the same time, a trauma can also be the things that we did not get. What is a trigger? Again, super simple. A trigger is an emotional flashback. So for example, let's say there's a couple. There's the wife, there's the husband. So the wife, they're married for 20 years. The wife comes back home. She sees a ring. In her head, she's getting stressed because, oh my God, the husband left the ring here. He's gonna divorce me. That's it. Our marriage is done. Everything is fucked. Then he comes back after like 20 minutes, all chill, having fun. He's been playing tennis, and he looks at his wife, and she's raging. And he looks at her, what happened? She's like, you're gonna leave me, you left the ring, blah, blah, blah. And then he looks at her, I just went to play tennis. So this is an example of a trigger. When the wife got so emotionally activated, in a subconscious way, what has happened, her trauma of abandonment when she was a child kicked in, but because she's not conscious of it, she only gets the fragmented aspect of it, which is the emotion. So IFS. I found out about IFS approximately 3 or 4 years ago, thanks to a woman that is called Teal Swan, and I'm going to talk about her in the end. So what is IFS? IFS is a theory of personality, as you can see on the right. Super simple. I can explain the theory behind it to a 10-year-old, and he'll probably understand. It's a healing psychotherapy modality. That means, just like Dr. Zbi perspective, we are not labeling or we're not pathologizing the symptoms. What we do is we look at a certain structure in the system, how the different parts of the system arrange themselves, and then we get curious about it. What is going on there, and why do they behave the way they behave? IFS is also a way of life. For example, there'll be a huge difference between if I'm making an appointment with a friend or a business colleague, and then he's late. And then I'm going to tell him, I am so mad that you were late. We set up the meeting, and now I'm really disappointed. And yeah, that's it. This is the normal way to express how I feel, or the mainstream way. The IFS perspective way would be, when you were late, a part of me were really angry because we had managed expectations. At the same time, another part of me felt really disappointed. At that point, what happens to the person that I'm talking with, instead of looking at me as this figure that is angry or disappointed, his emotional system can see that it's not only me that is angry. I'm aware of the side of me or the part of me that is angry, but there are also other parts of me. So that means I'm not them. And this helps to build trust and comfort super fast. Now I'm going to explain the model. I'm going to use an example out of my life. So imagine me, 5-year-old. I grew up with a single mom until I was like about 8 or 7. We went together to, it was a restaurant. And then I'm sitting at the dinner table, and what I'm seeing is this. I'm seeing a band, I'm seeing a stage. In my childlike brain that is very creative and wondrous and beautiful, because I was born this way like we all are, I'm imagining the band going to the stage. I can already see them dancing, smiling, singing, and because I was born free, my body animates what I'm thinking without any self-judgment. So without even being aware of it, I'm starting to dance and sing in the chair. Then what happens? My mom, she sees it, and because she grew up in Soviet Russia, she has her own triggers because of her culture and the way she was risen up. And then what happens? Because she is triggered and she's not being conscious, she explodes or transfers that trigger into me. She's getting emotionally activated. Oh my God, she's the guilt and shame coming up to the surface. You know what I'm talking about? There you go. There you go. Those triggers in her coming up, and because she's not conscious of it, it lashes out of me. She goes, Ilan, be quiet or you get punished. What happens in my small child brain? Danger of death. The alarms go off. What is going on? My coping mechanism says, if that woman is going to abandon me, I'm going to die because I'm fully dependent on her. So that side of me, or that part of me, that is the dancer, the singer, the performer, he's not welcome anymore, as seen by my mom's behavior. So this part goes into exile. At that moment of exiling, this is the trauma. This is the emotional distress that was not resolved. When this part gets exiled, what happens to him? He gets stuck in time and repeats his unresolved situation 24/7 in a loop that is never stopping until the loop will be resolved. Not only that, not only the fact that this part is in hell, he also accumulates what we call burdens. And burdens would be extreme emotions and belief. For example, emotions like loneliness, hopelessness, worthlessness, shame, guilt, and so on. Beliefs like I'm a loser, I'm ugly, I'm a monster. That's a huge one of mine. I'm not worthy of love. I'll be alone forever. I'm not even meant to be born. That's another big one of mine. And all of these kind of burdens, they will attach to the exile like a virus. But then what happens? Comes the second part that we call managers. So managers would be the parts of our personality. They take over, and their job is to control the environment, the outer environment, in a way that our exiles might be triggered. So what kind of manager could take over? This. I am Ilan, the good boy, that is very quiet and gentle and never disrespects his parents or anybody else for that matter. He's good at school, he's very quiet, and so on. Managers, their job is to make sure that the exiles will not get triggered. But the very fascinating thing, and it's a kind of an irony, protector parts, like the managers, they will create the reality they don't want to create. I'll give you an example. The most famous manager part would be the inner critic. We all have it to some degree. That a voice in us that criticizes us, shames us, judges us, and so on. So I'll give you an example of what is going on and why is it happening. So the manager's job is to prevent the exile from getting triggered. So if, for example, as an adult, I'm seeing a female that I'm attracted to, comes up, natural inspiration as a functioning male, and what will happen is I will see the girl, I'll feel the attraction coming up, bam, trigger, exile will get triggered, oh my God, past trauma coming up, and then a manager will come up and say, nah, you shouldn't approach her, she's busy, you don't want to interrupt her, and we'll find every single reason in the world why not to approach that female. And this manager will also criticize me in order to prevent me from approaching her and getting criticized from the outside, exactly like happened with my mom. We can help those exiles and those managers, and I will show you soon how. But what happens in reality where the universe finds the way to trigger us despite the manager's best efforts? Plan B. By the way, I had awesome pictures, and it sucks that I can't put them on because of something called copyright infringement, and that is pissing me off, but it is what it is. Okay, my demon is coming up. So firefighters are the plan B. We have managers, exiles, and firefighters. When the exiles get triggered, the alarm goes off in the system, and firefighters are coming to the rescue. What they will do is to do everything they can by any means necessary to submerge the exiles and bring them back into their hell, into their cage, so we will not be conscious of the pain of their emotions that is coming up to the conscious. And the way the firefighters will do it, by any form of escapism. For example, escaping, a huge one of mine was computer games. I went to school, my childhood was pretty much miserable, I was lonely as fuck, and the only escape that I had was computer games, because when I played computer games, that was my fantasy place where I'm the king. I have so many friends. Nobody knows me back then. Nobody knew how I look like because we didn't have that, all the social media. And so I couldn't be any person that I wanted. Whereas if I went to school, I could not do that because I was this sad person that everybody looked at me as. So the painful thing about the firefighters is that they have a hierarchy. And if one set of firefighters doesn't work, for example, escaping to computer games, another one will come in if the pain does not go down. So for example, there'll be escaping to eating food. That was not a big one of mine, but self-harm. Self-harm is a huge one. So for example, I remember when I was around 12, I got punished. My computer games were taken away from me. And that was my only source of happiness at that time. So because my emotional system could not cope with the pain and being with my emotions as they are, a firefighter had to kick in and took over my system. And what it did is to bang my head on the closet because that firefighter would prefer for me to feel the physical pain to numb the emotional pain. I remember after doing it, I felt kind of dizzy, bam. Another firefighter came in, put me to sleep. When all of these firefighters don't work, comes the ultimate firefighter, which will be suicidal. That firefighter, this part in us, remember how I told you, I haven't told you yet, but we have the principle in IFS, which is all parts are welcome. That means even though parts are extreme at times, they always have a positive agenda. So the firefighter, his job is to protect us. The body is intelligent. And from that firefighter's perspective, this is what is happening. He sees the emotional system on fire. The pain seems endless. So there is hopelessness. But not only that, not only hopelessness, there's also the feeling of being alone in it. So that deadly combination of being in the experience that a pain will be endless and having the loneliness at the same time, this is a black hole where the firefighters sees no way out. And the only way for that firefighter to have a sense of control is the fact that he knows I could end it in any moment. So in IFS, our approach would be, instead of trying to persuade any part, especially that firefighter, to not do what it wants to do, and by that taking his only coping mechanism and only sense of control, instead of doing that, we will get curious about this firefighter. We will get to know what his experience is like, and we will validate its experience. What will happen then, that part in us will see, oh, so unlike any other therapist or person, you're not trying to take me out or try to convince me that the pain that I'm feeling, I shouldn't be feeling, or I should act in any way that is different. You're actually trying to get to know me. And this is an act of intimacy that will help the part to get at least out of the place of loneliness and help this part to open up into a different perspective where maybe there could be an end to suffering. Yes. As I said before, there's a difference between disorders and adaptations. So when you see the DSM putting all of these kind of labels, I'll give you another label, for example, ADHD. I was diagnosed with ADHD as a child. So my teacher, when I was probably like in 10th grade, she told my mom, your kid is in school and he's just wandering about. His head is always somewhere else. He's never focused. You need to give him a pill because he has, he's probably ADHD. He has a disease that came out of nowhere. What happened is, I took the Ritalin. Of course, like every other pill, there is side effects to it. I basically behaved like a zombie. And then at a certain point, my parents, they saw that. And then like, we will not give that to him. If he's not going to be successful at school, then it is what it is. I grew up, reached the age of 21, and then I found out meditations. Then something very interesting happened. I was practicing it so much where I could take an alarm clock, put it for an hour and a half. I would go into my zone, bam, hour and a half gone. And I noticed that after meditating, my focus was laser sharp. But I always had to keep it in check. A few years later, I went to therapy, and then I had a clinical psychologist, and she was very, very good because she was out of the mainstream perspective. She told me something very interesting. She told me, Ilan, I can see the value you're getting from all the meditations. At the same time, she tells me about herself, I'm a lazy woman. If I could be in a place where I could get the benefits of meditations without doing the meditations, I would do that. And I'm looking at her like, what are you talking about? Long story short, on my evolution, I came across the perspective of parts. And then what I realized is the ADHD, that disease, is an adaptation. Okay, what is it trying to adapt with? Then I became aware, oh, so I was suffering all my childhood, and that firefighter, the ADHD part, was basically trying to take me out of my pain by numbing and distracting my perception. So when I got in touch with this part in me, he led me to the exile that he's protecting, ADHD gone. Now, let's say I'm reading a book. I could read a book in a stadium that is playing live show. It could be that at some point I'm noticing my mind is wandering off. Like, okay, so that's a part. And then because I practice it quite a lot, my awareness is very high. So I can identify the part very much immediately and get curious about it. So I'm noticing you're trying to take me out. Like, yeah, like, okay, so what is going on? What do you need? And then he can tell me anything. You forgot to wash the dishes. You need to do this, to do that. I'm like, okay, I give the part solutions. And when he receives what he needs, like, okay, you can go back to the book now. Bam, laser focus. So these are the three parts of a system. Every emotion, sensation that you have, every thought, every voice, every picture, every movie clip that is running in your head is coming out of these three parts. Exiles, firefighters, managers. But now I'm going to talk about the biggest breakthrough of the IFS, or internal family systems. Dick Schwartz, which is the founder of the IFS, he was and still a family therapist. He was working with the most problematic of clients. For example, the ones that are in jail, the rapists, the pedophiles, the murderers, and so on. At some point in his evolution, he came across clients that talk with him in parts perspective. And at a certain moment, he had this moment of revelation. So in a family therapy, let's say I'm with a mom, dad, and a kid. So let's say I'm trying to help the kid and get to know it better. And I'm noticing the kid is stifled and is not opening up. What I will do, I will check in the room if there might be anyone that is siding with the mom or with the kid. So let's say identify the dad. Yeah, the dad takes the side of the mom, so the kid is stifled. So then I would ask the dad, for example, if he could step out of the room so I could get to know the kid better because I'm noticing he's stressed. Then Dick has this moment of revelation where he went like, wait, what if it's the same in the inner system? So then Dick would tell his client, could you ask the part of you that is criticizing to take a step back for a moment? And then the client goes, okay, it did. And then Dick will be, it did, like in his own head. But then he would ask the client, how now do you feel towards the judging voice in you? And out of nowhere, instead of criticizing it, it became curious. But this has contradicted the attachment theory, because in attachment theory, if a person does not get a safe attachment figure that is healthy to teach him how to have compassion, curiosity, and so on, the person is not supposed to have it. And with the kind of people that Dick was working with, they did not have this kind of parents. So not only that, Dick has noticed when enough parts are taking a step back, the same person comes up. So curiosity came in out of Dick. And then Dick would ask him, wait, who is that talking now? And they'll be like, oh, what part is it now? And the client will say, oh, it's not a part, just myself. So then Dick understood, he noticed the patterns, and he called it the self with a capital S. The qualities of self, we have the 8 C's, we have the 5 P's: curiosity, compassion, connectedness, calmness, creativity, courage, confidence, perspective, playfulness, persistence, patience, and presence. The thing about the self, this is what all kind of different perspectives will label as being enlightened. From an IFS perspective, being identified with self is enlightenment. The self has an innate wisdom to heal the system and be with parts exactly the way that they need. Not only that, self can lead the system in a healthy way. And everybody are born with it. Just like with Dr. B's perspective about the physical system, that it knows how to heal itself because it's inherently intelligent, so is our emotional system. What happens when we help the parts? When self comes in and he helps the exiles, he can help resolve their emotional distress, and their burdens are being taken out. And this is what we will call healing. And when the exile is free out of his jail and he comes back to his natural, valuable state, that will allow the protectors to see that and be like, oh, so we don't have to protect that kid anymore. And then what happens? They go back to their natural state. And this causes harmony in the system and alignment. Just like Dick, or a B, aligns the spine. So the goals of IFS would be liberating the parts from the roles, restoring self-leadership, reharmonizing the system, and have the self as the leader of the emotional system. And now for the last piece. That woman, Teal Swan, thanks to her, I had my biggest emotional awakening. So through her perspective, I had the first experience of healing a trauma. She also comes from parts perspective. At the same time, she has a little bit of a different perspective. So I encourage you to look up at her content, and if you take her spiritual/emotional perspective, combine it with IFS and B's perspective about the physical system, this is pure gold. This is pure alignment, emotional, spiritual, and physical. That's it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do you have contact with
Yes. Yes. You can get a hold of me at ilankoch.com. It's ILANKOCH.com. It is here. Do we have time for questions or no?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I'll bring the mic to who has a question.
Cool.
Okay, I do. Are you an IFS practitioner, and do you have a website where they can get a hold of you? Is it the ilankoch.com?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And do you practice in just Israel, or do you practice all around the world?
I do mostly Zoom, so it's all around the world.
Ah, totally cool.
Yep.
Any questions? Okay, cool. So that I like the perspective, because like if you look at like Jung, Freud, they talk about the parts, but they talk about in language that doesn't make any sense, that I can't correlate. It's the id, the ego, the this, the that. But to know that your emotional state, you can have trauma when you were a kid, and that little kid's still inside of you. And a lot of people, they have a problem with self-acceptance, and that's what I love about this. So look it up, look at the people that Ilan recommends, and I know that there's a lot of different alternatives out there to empower yourself to deal with past traumas. And that's what I liked about this.
Yes.
We're going to get into a different world. Okay, we're going to go into the censorable part. And this is to get a person's perspective coming from Israel at how they wait. No, we'll go into that later, because right now still we've got YouTube and Facebook. So this is going to go on the Dr. B VIP. God bless you for all your support. Let's mess around with YouTube, okay? Because they've shadow banned us forever. Click the like or click the subscribe if you haven't, and let's just mess with their algorithms. So God bless you. Thank you for attending. And those in Dr. BVIP, what do you see we've got coming on?
Oh.
Okay.